Welcome to session 2 of our series, Held. In this class and in every class of this series, we will be starting by exploring fluid, gentle movement, and then followed by the second half of class with restorative grounding shapes. So as always, you will need some blankets, some blocks, a bolster, or anything that can be used in place of those items. And we will begin in child's pose or any shape of your choice. So if you prefer to stay seated, that's also an option. Or if you prefer to explore any other shape, such as maybe lying down or standing even, really, it's totally your choice. And I'm going to start in child's pose. So if you'd like to join me, you might like to have a blanket for your knees. This is totally optional. And you could come into a tabletop and allow the knees to separate and the toes to find one another back behind you. And then when you're ready, you might send your hips back toward your heels. And then you might walk your hands forward and allow your forehead to come to the mat. Or if you're in child's pose and you don't prefer to have your forehead touching the mat, then you might stack your fists underneath your chin, or maybe bring your elbows to the earth so that you can keep your gaze lifted. And as always, you can take a second blanket and drape it over your back body, the back of your hips, to provide a sense of being covered. So as you find your way into whatever shape you have chosen for yourself, I welcome you to become aware of your surroundings, not necessarily having to look around. I mean, you could do that if you wanted to, but just in a deeper sense, like using your felt, tactile touch. If your fingertips are touching the mat, you might feel the texture of your mat underneath your hands. Maybe it's your feet or some other body part that's touching whatever is beneath you, and can you just kind of feel into your environment? In this class, I invite you to explore what it is to create a container for yourself. Maybe you have heard the term holding space, and another way that I like to explore this, just different vernacular, is creating a container. Sometimes there isn't another person that's available to hold space for us, and we can do that for ourselves. So in this moment, I welcome you to just imagine a bubble around you. This bubble can be as big as you want it to be, with plenty of space for you to move around, plenty of space for you to feel and breathe. And in this space, this is completely yours. You have total ownership and control over it. In this container, you are welcome to feel whatever you need to feel, to move however you want to move, to express yourself in any way that feels right to you. There are no rules here. This is your space. And I'll remind you of that as we move through the session. So if you're welcome, or if you want to, you could work with that image of the bubble, or you might simply just explore the physical space that you're in. If the image of the bubble is not helpful, you can release that. So with or without it, you might begin to add some intuitive movement into your body. If you are in child's pose, you might start to move into your shoulders or your ribs, maybe rocking, or even shifting yourself forward into a tabletop shape. If you are any other shape and would like to meet me in tabletop, you can at any time, or you can explore organic movement wherever you are. And so here with this organic movement, there's no agenda. There's no right or wrong. It is completely just natural movement, following the flow of your body. You might move into your torso, your ribs, allowing your spine to create circular or swaying motions. You might roll through your shoulders or the neck, or perhaps even your wrists or feet. Anything goes here. And we'll be here with this organic movement for the next 3 rounds of breath. Just waking up the body, waking up our awareness of our connection with our body. And here, as we take our final breath in this intuitive movement, I offer you an affirmation that you might like to work with for this class, which is, I can create a container to be held in. I can create a container to be held in. And this container is not rigid. This container is metaphorical. It is something that allows you to hold space for yourself so that you can feel and breathe and experience whatever needs to be experienced. From tabletop, you might choose to return back to child's pose, or you might decide to come into a down dog, maybe walking your hands forward a little bit, tucking your toes, and breathing in as we lift the hips up towards the sky. Option here to take the feet as wide as the mat. So you might widen your stance in your feet to the left and the right. And then option to just feel into this. So you might release one foot and then the other, taking your time. You might like to shift your weight forward over your wrists and then shift it back. Maybe sway the hips and the heels from left to right, kind of windshield wipering movement. Really just exploring how your body feels. Whether you are in child's pose and stillness, or stillness and down dog, or movement in any other shape. We'll just be here for another 1 to 2 breaths. And then if and when you are ready, I invite you to take your gaze to the top of the mat and start to find your way forward into a forward fold. I'll meet you whenever you get here. There's no rush. And when you get to the forward fold, you might explore having a wider stance. Maybe your feet are about hip distance apart. Maybe your feet are as wide as your mat, or even wider. You can decide for yourself. And you might also explore having a bend in your knees. So rather than having the knees really locked out, which can create really big stretch through the body, which you may or may not be open to yet, but just to keep it gentle, you could bend through the knees, either a little bit or a lot. So we just come into this forward fold, taking one breath in and out at your own pace. And then with an inhale, you might bring your hands to your shins and lengthen through the spine for a halfway lift. Staying here as long as you want or need to. And then when you're ready, you could exhale down back into your fold. And then grabbing a block or a bolster and placing it behind you. Take a breath in, and then an exhale to release the hips down and bring the hips, the glutes, to that block or bolster. And we can sit on it, coming into a supported squat. Now you have a couple choices here. You can stay here on the support and just explore, maybe even rocking, perhaps folding forward, allowing the spine to totally relax, maybe reaching your arms in one direction and then the other. So here is an option. Another option is to remove that support and maybe just sway into your body. You could allow your toes and your feet to have a bit more fluid movement. You could explore, whether you have the support or not, you could explore reaching back with one hand, coming into a twist. You choose. And let's be here for about 4 rounds of breath so that you have time to choose, you have time to feel. There's no right or wrong. You can also change your mind. Two more breaths. And at the bottom of your last exhale, you might bring your hands to the floor in front of you and press the hips up, lengthen through the legs to come back into your forward fold. You set the stance here. You bend into your knees as much or as little as you want. And then with an inhale, you could find a halfway lift if you're ready for it. And then an exhale to fold right back down. All right, with a big breath in, we could reach all the way up, lengthen through the legs, standing. Then exhale, lowering the hands down. Let's take a moment here to just arrive. If you want, you could leave your eyes open, especially if you feel like your blood pressure is still regulating, or you could close the eyes. Maybe placing one hand over your heart and one over your stomach. Bringing some awareness into your feet. Feeling the connection between you and your mat. Taking another moment to bring to mind your affirmation. I can create a container to be held in. Or if that word doesn't work for you, it might be something along the lines of, I can hold space for myself. I can hold space for my emotions, my experiences, whatever it may be. Taking one more breath in through the nose and out. In your own timing, you might begin to inhale and reach your arms up overhead. And option to grab onto your right hand to the left wrist. Or you might hook your thumbs together. So you choose. Breathing in. And then exhale, drawing the left arm over the body, over the right. So leaning to the right. One breath here. And then option to stay here, or option to step your left foot out. And then breathing into center. And exhale, left hand can come down to the outside of the left leg as we lean the other way and reach to the left. One breath. Inhale, right back up to center. Stepping the feet back together and releasing the arms. Option to roll through the shoulders. And then we'll take it on the other side. Breathing in. This time, maybe your left hand holds onto your right wrist, or you hook thumbs. Exhale, leaning over to the left. And then you could choose to stay here or step your right foot out. And then inhale, back to center. Right hand could come to the outside of the right leg as we lean over the opposite direction. Breathing for one breath right here. And then an inhale to come right back up and step it back to center, releasing the arms and the hands. And just feel, noticing any sensations in your body from those lateral, so side bends. And then when you're ready, you could inhale and reach your arms back up. Exhale, I'll meet you in a forward fold. Inhale for a halfway lift. And exhale for a fold. To stabilize yourself, you could bring your hands to the mat, bending your knees to create some space for that. And then stepping one foot back and then the other. You could bring your knees to the floor. And if you're ready, you could lower down onto your stomach. Now we have a couple options here. We could leave our hands where they are. An option to explore like a rolling cobra, if you will. Pressing your hands into the earth, breathing in and lifting the heart space open. You might even roll the shoulders back. And then with your exhale, you could lower your heart space back down. Perhaps even repeating this movement as much as you want. Inhale, rolling up. Exhale, rolling down. If after a few movements of this, you'd like to explore another version, you could bring your hands out to the sides, left and right. Elbows float up. And we're tenting the fingers. And you could inhale, press the fingers into the floor, lift yourself. And then exhale, drop the left shoulder forward and look over your right. Inhale, center. Exhale, drop the right shoulder and look over your left. This is called Dancing Cobra. Now this is optional, just like everything in this class is. So you could explore this shape, or you could stay with the rolling baby cobra. Wherever you're at, let's take 2 more inhales, 2 more exhales. And an inhale to find you back to center, and an exhale to lower you back down. Option to press back into child's pose, or option to lay on your stomach. This is called a prone shape. And just rest here, maybe using your arms as a pillow. It doesn't take very much movement to reconnect, to feel, to become aware. So starting to come down from that gentle movement and get ready for some restorative, grounded shapes. We'll take another 4 to 5 rounds of breath here, whether you are in child's pose or lying on your stomach. Just breathing, being with your breath. However, it's naturally flowing. There's no need to change your inhales or your exhales. You can just breathe naturally. Two to 3 more breaths. Last one. You can choose to stay here longer. And whenever you're ready, take your time pressing yourself up. And we will need our blocks as well as a bolster or something like those items. So you could have your first block nice and tall and your second block at the middle height. And taking your bolster, you could just set it on the floor right in front and then allow it to kind of lean on our blocks. And have at least one blanket nearby. Towards the end of class, there will be a shape in which we need 2 blankets. And so you could just kind of have those now, just so that you don't have to get up and grab them, but up to you. Once you have your blocks and bolster set up, we will come into our next shape by sitting, looking away from our bolster. And I'm gonna start on my left side. And so I'm gonna extend my right leg. This is a reclined warrior's pose. And then I like to move the flesh of my left calf out of the way because we're gonna be folding our left leg back. And so just to kind of create a bit more space, I'll just take my thumb and gently pull the calf to the side and allow my left leg, my left foot to come back. And you'll notice here that I'm not sitting on my left foot, my left heel. In fact, my whole shin, ankle, foot is to the left of my femur, my quad. So just noticing that if you're sitting on your heel, it could create this like lopsided, unstable feeling. So if that feels kind of funky for you, that might be why. And then when you're ready, you could begin to lean back onto your bolster, and you might need to adjust. I like to kind of like lift my hips a little bit. I like to tuck my shoulders. And so take a minute to make sure that you feel supported. And one option is to have your right leg extended, just hanging out, resting. A second option is to take your right foot And bring it to your left leg, just allowing the sole of the foot to touch the left leg as your right knee bends and falls open. So you choose which one you would prefer. And then when you feel settled, you might begin to sink into this shape. We will be here for the next 25 breaths or so, just really giving our body time to rest, to let go. Allowing ourselves to take up the space around us, knowing that this is your space. Whatever it might look like. Maybe it's the room that you're in. Maybe it's the rectangle shape of your mat, holding you and your props. Maybe it's the blanket that you've draped over yourself. We can use these items, these spaces, these moments, even this class. All of these things can make up the space, the container, the bowl, if you will, that is holding our experience and giving us a chance to unravel, to feel, to notice. And you can create this for yourself. You already have. You're doing it right now. You already have created this for yourself. We'll be here for another 8 or so breaths. You might even notice that the longer you give yourself in a shape, the more that your body softens. That might not be your experience, and if not, that's okay. But you could be experiencing that. Last breath here. And if you're ready, because you could totally stay here longer if you wanted to, but if you're ready to move out of this shape, you could use your hands to slowly and gently press you up. Take your time, there's no rush. Leaning to the right, you could unravel your left leg. Give yourself a moment. check in with your body. It might feel welcome to kind of move and stretch into your left leg. And then if you're ready for the next side, you do the same thing. So we'll go to the right side now, or whichever side is opposite for you. If you liked it on the other side, you might gently just kind of move your calf muscle out of the way before you fold your right foot back. And then find your way down onto your bolster, making any adjustments needed. And once you feel settled, you might decide if you want your left leg extended or if you want to allow the left knee to come out to the side. Bring the sole of the left foot to the right leg. And then we'll settle in. You might notice, just by taking a light scan through your body, if there's any area that's still retaining muscle tension. Could you invite those areas to soften if it feels safe? Maybe it's your jaw, perhaps your shoulders or your stomach. Maybe it's the hips or the legs. Wherever that is for you. You might use your breath to just send an exhale. Allow that tension to leave with your out breath. Another 5 breaths here. Taking your time, using your hands to press yourself up and unravel the right leg. giving it a stretch. And then for our next shape, you might like to take one of your blankets and fold it in half long ways. And then you can kind of make it more narrow, either rolling it up or folding it up. It doesn't have to be perfect. And placing the feet and the knees together could allow the soles of the feet to touch. And then grabbing the ends of your blanket, you could place the middle of the blanket on top of your feet and then lift the knees just a little bit so that your blanket can be tucked into where the hips are, and then allow the knees to fall open again. And this is a very supported butterfly shape. Now, you might not like this blanket here, and if you don't, you can totally forego it. You don't have to have it, but you might like it, and you also might like to take a second blanket and drape it over your lap before settling back into your bolster. Making any adjustments that you need to make so that you feel supported and stable. And if this shape is absolutely not an option for your body today, that's okay. You could choose to have your legs just outstretched. You could choose to plant your feet on the floor and allow the knees to fall in toward one another. I'll show you that option right here. You could take your feet as wide as your mat and then allow the knees to fall in toward one another. That is also an option. So really, it's whatever you want. It's whatever you want to do. And we'll be here for the next 18 to 20 breaths. If it helps to work with the imagery of the bubble, you might bring that to mind now. Knowing that within this space, this is totally your time, bubble or no bubble. This is your time, your space. You can let go as much as you want to let go. You can rest as deeply as you want to rest. Last few breaths here. as you're ready, you might remove the blanket that's on top of you. Just fold it up and set it to the side. And taking your hands and using them to gently pull the legs out of the shape. And then pressing yourself up. This blanket here that's over your ankles, you can just kind of set it to the side. You don't need to fold it up or anything like that. We're going to use it again. And we'll just move our blocks out of the way. So we'll still need our bolster. I'm going to move this to the side as well. And the blocks can just go somewhere else. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to walk you through how I'm facing so that we don't get our lefts and rights mixed up, but just know that you can start on any side you want. But on my left side are my bolster and blanket, and then on my right side is one folded blanket. So that's what I'm going to leave there. And then I'm going to come to lay on my left side. My left leg is nice and long, and I'm going to bring my bolster up next to me so that when I bend my right knee, my right leg, it can be supported by the bolster. And then this blanket right here, I'm just going to kind of throw over my leg to provide some grounding so that when we come into the twist, sometimes our top leg wants to peel away and go with the twist, and so this blanket will just provide a little bit of grounding so that we don't have to work so hard to stay in the twist. We can soften into it. So once you have that set up, this folded blanket right back here is just going to be close to my right shoulder, but I'm not really doing anything with it just yet. So then once you have that, you could just take a moment to rest. I like to take my bolster and tuck it in real close to my stomach. It just provides a little bit more grounding. And then you can choose to stay right here. Maybe this feels really good. If you want to stay laying on your side, you could take that blanket, the one that's by the shoulder, and just tuck it up against your back. Or have nothing behind your back, but that's an option. You could stay right here, do that, feel supported, and sink into your version of rest. A second option, if you'd like to take a twist, you could send your left arm out and open, stretching it out. And then allow your shoulder to peel back, your right shoulder. I like to kind of untuck my left ribs, my left shoulder, so that there's a bit more room. So you could explore that. But taking this folded blanket that's on your right side, you could, if your right shoulder is floating up off of the floor like mine is, you could leave it floating. It doesn't necessarily mean anything bad, but to provide some support, some groundedness so that we aren't left hanging, so to speak, you might like to take your folded blanket and just scooch it underneath that right shoulder so that it's being held up, it's being supported, and you can play with the fold of your blanket. You might need to fold it less or fold it more. So once you have everything how you like it, it hopefully will feel supported and grounded, and you can make sure to adjust any of the props that you need to adjust. And we'll settle in here for about 25 breaths. If you're in the twist, you might like to have your arms open, palms face up, Or you might prefer to have your hands resting on your stomach or your ribs. Whichever one feels most grounding to you, whichever one feels safer, either one is open to you. And your head can look in any direction that you want. Oftentimes we've been told to turn our head into the twist, to make the twist deeper, but in reality, if your body isn't ready for that, it could just cause more tension. So if you want, you might just turn your head straight up towards the ceiling, or you might even just allow the head to fall over to the left. You choose. Ten more breaths in and out. Last breath here. In your own timing, you could begin to just make your way out of the twist by rolling onto your back. And then pausing on your back to allow the spine a moment to unravel, untwist. Noticing how one side of your body feels in comparison to the other. And then when you are ready for the next side, this will be our final shape before our final resting pose, Shavasana. So you could just move all your props to the other side, flip-flop, or you could just turn your body. So now I'm going to lay on my right side. My right leg is straight. My left leg is supported by the bolster. And I use my blanket to ground my left leg.
could draw the bolster in close to your leg, to your stomach, so that your body has something really solid to lean against. And again, you could stay right here, laying on your side if this feels good. Or if you want, you could allow your left shoulder to fall open, using your blanket, your folded blanket, underneath the left shoulder to catch you. And making any adjustments necessary. 25 breaths here. Five more breaths. After your last breath, you might begin to make your way out of this twist by just rolling onto your back. And we'll begin to set up for our Shavasana. And here, you can really choose. I mean, this whole class you can choose whatever you want. But in this final resting pose, rest is just so personal, and however it feels safest for your body is how you are welcome to rest. That might look like lying on your back and using props to support you, and I'll go over an option here in a moment. That could look like sitting up to rest, or lying on your stomach, or perhaps taking the legs up the wall. So you have any option at your disposal. What I'm gonna do is use my bolster underneath my knees to support my lower back. And then I'm going to drape a blanket over me. And I'm actually gonna drape a couple blankets over me. And this just helps provide like a sense of comfort and security. And also, if your blankets are heavy like mine are, then they kind of create like this like weighted blanket feel. So whatever feels appropriate to you, You can find your way there and settle in. We'll be here for just a few minutes, and I'll keep track of the time. You don't have to rush away out of this resting shape if you are still receiving the benefits. If you are still sinking into rest, you can stay here until you feel satisfied. And I hope that this class supported you in being held and in exploring how to create a container for yourself to be held in. My hope is that you feel safe, connected, and at home in your body. Thank you for joining me.